Hi, my name is Morgan and today I'm going to be talking about my job at the PA Renaissance Faire for the 2020 season. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I got my job, my experiences at the fair, and how COVID-19 impacted the whole season. In February of 2020, I decided to start looking for jobs that I could turn into an internship. Someone had posted in the Millersville Entertainment Technology Slack page that the Ren Fair was looking for stage managers, so I sent over my resume and references to the administrative assistant. She then forwarded my information to the technical director, Ian, and he and I had set up an interview for the beginning of March. After the interview, which we conducted over the phone, he offered me the job and they sent me out a contract. However, this is exactly when COVID-19 was hitting the United States. So for a while there we didn't know what was going to happen with the fair, and it wasn't until May when they sent us out a new contract letting us know everything that was going to be changed. For example, usually we start August 1st, however we weren't going to start until September 5th and then run till November 1st. Because I was still in school, I only worked weekends when the fair was running, but a week or so before we opened, I went up to the grounds for some tech rehearsals where I got to work at my stage and learn more about the equipment. I was a stage manager at the endgame stage, which was right next to the Royal Aviary where they house the trained birds and the archery area. Throughout the run of the fair, I didn't really have too many changes in my acts, but I had a band called Wine and Alchemy, a magician named Scott Alexander, as well as 2 shows put on by the fair actors. So now let's run through a typical fair day for me. Saturday morning, I would get up at 6 a.m. so I could leave the house by 7:15 and be at the grounds before 8 a.m. because at 8 a.m. we would have a meeting with the crew. At this meeting, we would discuss anything that needed to be done before the fairgrounds open, like fixing the flags at the front gate or fixing the banners at the joust field. After our meeting, we would all go through a checkpoint where they would ask us if we had any COVID-19 symptoms and check our temperatures. And once we were done with that, we would all head to our own stages where we would get them ready for the day. Because my stage was surrounded by trees, I would have to sweep the stage every morning, as well as sometimes use a leaf blower as we got further into fall. Then I would go backstage to unlock the doors, check to make sure there was water for the acts, and check the sound systems. Usually when I'm checking the sound systems, I would also adjust the presets based on what everyone sounded like the week before and any feedback from the acts. Once our stages were set up, we would radio to see if anyone needed any more help, and then we would go get changed into our costumes. So this is probably my favorite part, and it's the fact that we got to wear costumes just like the actors, just in case we need to get up on stage during their acts. Also, it makes people feel more comfortable coming up and talking to us. As the weather got colder, we got gloves, scarves, and cloaks. The cloaks were made of wool, so they were incredibly warm. And once we were done getting changed, we would all head to morning meeting with the cast, crew, and the independent acts at 9:45. After morning meeting, we would make sure nothing else needed to be done before the park opened, and then we would head back to our stages. Once I got back to my stage, I would usually sanitize my mic packs and elements, which we had to do in between each act because of COVID. Usually when I'm done sanitizing, I'm also done setting up my stage for the day, so I would eat my breakfast and read a book until 11 when the park opens. My first show wasn't until noon, and they were Wine and Alchemy, so I would wait for them to get there so I could help them set up. They were a really cool band, but they had some of the weirdest instruments I'd ever seen. They played instruments like the Greek bouzouki, the sackbut, the sazbouche, the hurdy-gurdy, and the harmonium. While I've heard of some of those instruments before, I definitely never worked with them, so mixing for instruments that you aren't necessarily sure how they're supposed to sound was definitely an experience. After Wine and Alchemy, I had the photo op with Her Majesty for the first half of the run of the fair until they moved her to another stage. And next was Alexander the Magician, who did magic and comedy. I always enjoyed his shows, and then I would have him and Wine and Alchemy a few more times before the fair actors would come for their improv show called Disaster Piece. The actors would change the overall plot of the show every 3 weeks to keep things interesting, and because of this, it was my most active show because it was always changing. After Disaster Piece, I would have Wine and Alchemy and Alexander a few more times before my hour break at 4 p.m. During this break, I would usually go to the bathroom and walk around the fair if it was really nice outside. I especially liked to talk to the other fair folk and go see some other shows if I could. But at 5 o'clock, I had to be back at my stage for one last show with Wine and Alchemy, and after that, it was music with Her Majesty. And that was a show with the Queen, one of her ladies-in-waiting, and 2 of the peasant women, and they would sing some acoustic songs. Music with Her Majesty was my last show of the day, so once that was over, I would start shutting down my stage, which included gathering up all the mics and sanitizing them, taking out the trash, locking up the back doors, and gathering the empty water jugs to take back to the Globe Theater. However, I would keep the sound equipment on, so we would have music playing until a little bit later. Once I was done shutting down my stage, I would call over the radio to see if anyone needed any help, just like in the morning, and then I would head back to Globe to go change back into my normal clothes. At 6:45, when we're back in our normal clothes, I would head back to my stage to go shut off the music, and then go back to the Globe Theater to watch the finale. The finale was always the most exciting part of the day for me because I would get to watch the independent acts that are at some of the other stages. Once finale was over, the stage managers who were already done would go help shut down the globe stage and the others could go get changed. And then when the grounds were clear, we would have one last crew meeting to discuss anything important that happened that day or anything that needed to be changed or fixed for tomorrow. By this point, it was usually a little bit past 8 p.m., so we would get to go home, go to bed, get up and do it again the next day. Overall, working at the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair was the most amazing experience I've ever had. It was a lot of really, really hard work, but the experiences that I had were like nothing else. Because it's such a non-traditional venue, I feel like I learned so much that I wouldn't have been able to in a university setting, and I met some of the most incredible people there. If you ever get the chance to work at a Renaissance Fair, I highly recommend you take it. And this year I was especially grateful to have this job during this pandemic. So many people that I know weren't able to get their internships, and I had one of the most incredible ones.